UFC 161 ended last night with 11 fights being on the card. There was originally supposed, I think, scheduled 12 or 13 fights, but Chauvin was taken off the card. Um, Lil Nog was taken off the card. Uh, and the main event, the original main event, was supposed to be Hanan Barral. A lot of people have questions as to why the main event between Hendo and Rashad Evans was only 3 rounds. The reason is because it was originally supposed to be a 5-round battle for the bantamweight division interim champion, Hanan Barral, taking on Eddie Wineland. Barral was a huge favorite, like 5-1, something like that, 4 or 5-1, maybe even more. And Barral was injured, which is interesting. I don't know what the UFC is going to do about the bantamweight division being that, Dominic Cruz is out with a blown ACL, not once but twice did he get fucked with the ACL. And then, you got Barral that's injured, the interim champion injured, and then you got number 2 ranked Uriah Faber just, sweeping that division. It depends which way you really look at it. There's 11 fights, 2 finishes. That's it. 2 finishes out of 11 fights. Now, is it because that Joe Silva's matching up people that, matching people that are so evenly skilled that, it's getting harder and harder to finish guys? Is that it? Or is it just, fighters are fighting not to lose instead of fighting to win? Because the UFC's it. The UFC's it, man. There is no more Strikeforce to go to. There is no more places like that, where fighters can go. They get cut. Strikeforce was, once thought of as, UFC cuts a fighter. They immediately jumped to Strikeforce and what Dana White used to call a strike farce. The minor leagues, like all this. And once they absorbed it, he had, he really, before the contract was even signed, he was seen, hanging out with the guy. He loved the guy, it was very apparent what was going to happen with Dana White and Jake Shields. There was a controversial fight, controversial decision, not controversial to me at all. Total strikes landed. Once the fight metrics up, I'll post it up. I'll post the link at the bottom. Jake Shields forced Tyron Woodley into fighting his fight, which is grappling. Even though I think he got one takedown, said that he didn't. When you elevate a guy and he's down on the ground, that's a takedown to me. He got one takedown. He got one. He definitely got one that he didn't count. The whole fight with Shields, he was the aggressor, and what bothers me anymore is it's Tyron Woodley can punch Jake Shields, with just thunderous, murderous shots, 5 or 6 times. If Jake Shields can outlast that onslaught and come back with 50 just little peppering shots, kind of like the Carlos Condit Nick Diaz deal, where Carlos Condit was kicking Nick Diaz not hard at all. It was basically no shin, just the foot. He was kicking Nick with his foot, and it was landing on Nick's calf. But the striking went up and up and up. The numbers were the key for Carlos Condit to win that fight. And the numbers won Jake Shields the fight. It's the number of takedowns landed and the significant strikes. And that's really what matters. It doesn't matter, how badly beaten, the guy is. If he survives it and outstrikes you, even if they're little pitty-pat strikes, he hit you more than you hit him. He took you down. You didn't, that seems to be the way that it works. That's not the way I'm used to it working. Tyron Woodley landed a beautiful spinning back fist that for a second, Jake Shields' legs gave out. He was wobbly. Jake Shields immediately came back and got over-under, pushed him against the fence, forced him to clinch, wrestle with him. I feel like there's no controversy at all in the fight. Actually, Dana White tweeted that Woodley was robbed immediately when the decision was read. But you know what? I didn't hear him bitching. When Jake Shields was a hot commodity, when he was hot on the market, coming off a Strikeforce, a big win over Dan Henderson, he fought Martin Kampman. A lot of people thought Martin Kampman edged Jake Shields in his first fight in the UFC. Jake Shields. I didn't hear Dana. I didn't read a damn thing about Dana. He wasn't bitching then. Jake Shields was a super hot commodity, and he wasn't complaining when it was razor wire thin again delivered. I think WMMA is fantastic. I'm a big fan of the females. Rosie Sexton, Alexis Davis went back and forth. That second round showed how, to me, WMMA is still evolving. She had her. Davis had Sexton she had her back, or at least her side. It was just, I mean, all that Sexton was doing was covering like this and getting bombs dropped on her. And she had, I think she had her there at the 35-second mark. 35 seconds left to go in the round. At that point, I would just be throwing thunderous shots and elbows to try to get that fight stopped, because all Sexton was doing was covering. And instead, she was just, kind of tapping her. Again, like, these guys seem to be fighting not to lose instead of fighting to win, coming to bring it. Country Nelson, complete different story. He was completely outclassed by Stipe Miocic. Didn't expect that at all. I don't think anybody did. Yeah, Miocic was so fluid and crisp. But it looked like Roy Nelson took him for granted completely. It looked like Roy Nelson took this thing lightly. I know they took it on short notice, but Nelson brings it every time. It looks like he took Stipe, not being in the top 10. He was. He's 9-1. Who knows what Roy Nelson is? So I think he took him lightly, and he paid for it dearly. He paid for it very, very dearly, and that sucks. I think guys like that bring it every time. It kind of sucks when that happens. Jimmo Procrite, I'm not going to say anything about because it's a fucking snooze. It was terrible. Neither guy can be happy with that. And this is where I'm, I was watching it, with a couple people, and we're just like, man, even the guy on top, regardless if it was Jimmo or Procrite, they're just laying there. They're not throwing punches. They're not looking for submissions. They're looking to lay there and their little pepper shots. There's head and arm triangle everywhere, armbar written all over the place for Jimmo a few different times. Never took advantage. Henderson versus Evans, and I had Evans picked for this fight. He was, at one point, they were deadlocked even as far as betting odds went. I picked Evans, and as the fight approached, I'm like, my pick's Dan Henderson. I changed my pick during the walkouts. Actually, when Henderson walked out, I thought he looked fantastic. I said I just had a feeling that he was gonna gut this one out. I scored it online on Twitter. I scored it 29-28. In favor of Hendo. Not aware it was 3 rounds until I remembered about the Eddie Wineland brow situation, the Shogun. It was supposed to be Little Nog. Little Nog's injured. Chael Sonnen stepped in, so I was super pumped about that. Didn't happen, so we were left with a 3-round main event that broke records. Was a very, very close fight. I thought Lyoto Machida, at the end, Dan Henderson had a little something to say about he thought he was more comfortable with this loss than he was against Machida. I thought Machida clearly won the other fight, and this one could have went either way, because round 1 belonged to Dan Henderson, and no one's disputing that. Round 2 was the coin toss, and round 3 belonged to Evans, and no one's disputing that. So I mean, it was round 2. Those that have watched, can back me up on this. It's a coin toss. It actually kind of depends who your favorite is. If you like Rashad Evans, you probably see it for Rashad. If you like it, you like Dan Henderson, you probably saw it for Henderson. But either way, Rashad took home the W, and really that's all that seems to matter anymore. Sad situation, true situation. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be picking up some views and some new subscriptions.